I don't know if many people were doing this, but back in the day, this is sort of before I was flying frequently, pre 9/11, is that an airline ticket was as good as cash. So I don't know how many of
Oh,
you guys were sort of storing them and then trading them in at a later date.
right. So back in the day, especially with Delta being in Atlanta, right? On your tickets to this day, there will be different classes. And if you and we're not talking about class of seating, class of tickets. And WCW was famous for not looking ahead, and they were famous for booking your tickets last second. So when they did, they paid the most money, and those are called Class A tickets. Well, we all knew in Delta there's these guys called Redcoat Securities. Well, they were bought with WCW credit cards, right? But this was something that we all really did. And so what you would do is if you already knew you're flying out, there are a lot of times what I would do is I would call and I would say, "Hey, I want to use some miles." And I only did it on some kind of like crazy ticket, like last second to New York or something that's $1,200 or something. And what you do is you'd go ahead and book your flight, you'd use your miles. But here's the deal: you did not turn that ticket down because then it would go back on the credit card. You kept the ticket as cash. You would go and book another flight wherever you wanted to. They would use that credit onto the new flight. Then you would then take that flight and turn it back in for cash because it had gotten off the credit card, right? So there were a lot of games, man. For most of your guys, except for like Sting and maybe Vader and maybe Lex Luger, in your agreements were that you had to ride in a car with at least two other people to get the car paid for, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us. So there was, and especially in tax scenarios, there was a lot of jockeying with receipts. Okay, so like I will just say, IRS, if you're listening, I didn't necessarily do this government tax people in America,
It's a
but
7 year
so
it's a 7 year cutoff point, isn't it? So it doesn't even matter. It's in the nineties, man.
yeah, so sometimes I would go and say, like, if you or me were on the road, and let's just say you weren't that famous, you were just up and coming. Okay, well then I'd say, hey James, we're gonna split a room. Hey, okay, man. Where you at? The Marriott. Oh, I usually stay in shitty hotels. Now you're staying at the Marriott. Let's split rooms. And what would end up happening is I would go to the front desk and I'd say, hey, listen, my real name is James, and but my stage name's Eric Watts. So I need to put the room under James. So when I checked out, they would print me the ticket for James. I go, hey, for my taxes, I got to give my accountant. My accountant does everything under my stage name. Can you change James's name to Eric Watts? And they go, oh yeah, and they print me another receipt. Well, that way you left with a receipt for the total hotel, and I left with the receipt for the total hotel. And so when we ran and did the gas back in the day, right? If you went and did gas, a lot of times I would take cash and I wouldn't use my credit cards because if I came and said, hey, here's $100 for gas. Hey, can you go ahead and print me two receipts? They would print you two receipts. There's no names on it, right? Okay, I can do that. I can do that. Well, then I would go back to the car where there's three guys and say, hey, it's $33 a piece. Oh, and here I got three receipts for $100 for gas. So like I mean, you do it with meals all the time. Like with meals, like if we sat down and we pile on to one tab and say, hey, we need to copy the receipts. The only way you'd get banged up there is if you're dumb enough to use your credit card that shows a different credit card on there. So a lot of times we'd use cash instead, and so it would make your taxes. It looks like your expenses were higher, from what I heard other people doing.